What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another installment of Friday Q&A, this time with a difference. In an unsolicited manner, I'm going to go over and answer people's questions on one of the most popular forums for guitar players on the internet, the Gear page. So, as you can see, I'm here. And I check the Gear page probably every day because, one, it's a great place to learn about new pieces of gear, whether it's like, you know, the biggest manufacturers out there or the smallest manufacturers. And second, I just love it for the bands because there's so much entertainment that you can get from the misinformation and the butt hurt and, you know, all the good stuff. That's why we use the internet, right? To get outraged. So let's take a look at some people's questions on the Gear page. Where should we start? There's a whole playing and technique section in here. Let's just start in the guitars in general section because, you know, we'll start out in a general manner, and this is about guitars anyway. So let's see, what do we got here? Another ugly guitar. I never believed you can instantly tell a good guitar by how it sounds unplugged until today. This is some good stuff so far. What is the best guitar ever made? This is a classic Gear page. This is going to be awesome. Okay, I realize this is a ridiculous, unanswerable question, yet I'm still answering it, and you're still asking it. Impossible to obtain a consensus that makes any sense, too much variability in genre and design, and clearly although a 50s Les Paul is a top-notch choice, to play heavy blues rock through a Marshall would be unusable in a bluegrass band. Some might argue that our conservatism blinds us to progress in materials and designs, and that some recent guitars are clearly improvements on previous work. Having said all of that, give me your best shot. That's actually a pretty well nuanced little outline there. Shouldn't this kind of just be my favorite guitar? This is my favorite guitar, right behind me. This is my PRS SC245, and I just really like it, and it works well for what I do. So for me, this is like the best guitar ever. But, you know, if you had to make the argument about, like, could you only take one guitar and cover as many styles, that might be a better metric for it. And it's pretty hard to argue against something like a Fender Telecaster. You know, it just works for just about everything. Just about everything. You know, put a humbucker in it, you can play metal on a Strat. Leave the single coil in the neck, you can play just about any kind of clean sound. Roll the tone control down, you can do jazzy stuff. Obviously, it's probably not going to work for acoustic stuff, but yeah, maybe a 335 in that case, because you could probably get away getting some pseudo-acoustic tones out of that one. Or maybe something like a PRS P24. You know, you got the piezo in there, so you can do all your acoustic stuff. You got the pickup choices. Yeah, what do people reckon? Fender Telecaster. Yep, covers a lot of basses, and people used to play bass on the Telly as well. So the pre-war style OM. Yep, these are some classic choices. Let's just scroll through and see where it gets. I mean, there's only 8 pages, so maybe this is a well-behaved thread. It hasn't sort of devolved into forum-ing. Where are we? You could make a reasonable argument that music itself is a wasted bandwidth. All right, yeah, this is the good stuff. Yeah, good stuff here. Any guitar in the hands of a good player? Yep, this is just kind of like we're hitting all the cliches, which I like. Early 60s Strat, very nice guitars. Ooh, that's a nice looking guitar. What is that? A Duesenberg? I've played a few. Whoa. What is this? A Bass Lab Standard. I've never seen one of these guitars before, and that is just outrageous. Wow. Well, there you go. You learn something new every day. So, and what was my answer? A Strat? God, I'm boring and conservative, like most other guitar players. What else have we got here? What is the best guitar ever made? That was a pretty good way to start, I think. Let's see. What are some questions? Which Strat do you like the best? Ooh, this is my type of question, because we were just talking about the Strat. Which of these 5 Strat models suits your playing style the best? I have to go with the Yngwie Malmsteen straight away, because I have a Malmsteen Strat that I absolutely love. So let's put a little vote on that one. I'm going to cast my vote and see what other people say. On this video, cool. I'm going to have to remember. Oh, here we go. Malmsteen plays Eruption with his teeth. That's a fun video. There we go. I'm clearly in the minority. People love the Hendrix Strat, which makes sense. So yeah, maybe we'll get one other guitar question in there. That was a good one. I love the old Malmsteen Strats. What next? What gold can we stumble across? Tell me about your 54 to 56 Les Paul reissue. That doesn't count. Here we go. Here's a question about the PRS Customs. I like PRS Customs. I've been offered a trade with an 07 PRS Custom 22 10-top in grey black. Can anyone share their experiences with these? Well, I have 2 Custom 24s, and they're pretty different. I've got a green one and a blue one. The green one has the rotary 5-way, which is, I know it annoys a lot of people, but I really like that. And the other one has a McCarty style electronic. So, you know, probably the McCarty style electronics, you know, just a classic toggle switch is a little bit easier to get around. And a guy I used to play in a band with had a custom 22. And I really like that as well. It's like a, how would I describe it without doing it? I don't have a custom 22 here to compare, but it's kind of like the 22 was a little bit more classic sounding, for, you know, use of a better term. You know, 22 frets, the neck profile was a little bit different, and because of the location of the pickup, the neck pickup sounded a bit different. I think the 24s probably sound a little more hi-fi than a 22. But yeah, there you go. That would be my answer. I have no idea what he's trading it for, though. So, yeah. And obviously different pickups. The 22s have dragons. So, yeah, 22. Depends what you're trading it for. If it's like a trade for, you know, an Epiphone Les Paul, of course, do it. But if it's a trade for something comparable, well, I'm a big PRS fan, so I'm pretty biased. Anyway, let's have a look at something else. Let's look at amps and cabs rather than guitars. This should be juicy as well. Let's see. A tube amp for coffee shop gigs. Now, does that mean that your tube amp has to make different styles of coffee? Because in that case, you might just want to get a coffee machine. Oh, Dad. I'm going to start doing the coffee shop circuit with my single coil Strat and a mic, but I no longer have a giggable amp. I play from clean to overdriven. What are my options? I used to have a Fender 65 Deluxe Reverb. Nice. But it's long gone now. You know what I would do? I would just get a Hot Rod Deluxe if you like that kind of stuff. Or get, as this guy's saying, a Deluxe Reverb reissue. Or I used to do a lot of small gigs with a Blues Junior, which sounded great, and that worked fine for kind of small club gigs. So I imagine you could probably get away with the old Blues Junior in that case if you wanted to go the tube route. Actually, Ryan, the singer from Ragdoll and bass player, he does a Creedence tribute band and that he plays guitar and sings in, and he uses a Blues Junior for everything there, and he loves it. So Blues Junior, Hot Rod Deluxe, Deluxe Reverb reissue, just get something that Fender make now and you'll probably be happy. Something with reverb as well, because anytime I think of like coffee shop gigs, I think of Jeff Buckley's Live at Chennai, and that reverb he's got on there is gorgeous. Let's see. All right. Marshall DSL-20 or Fender Pro Junior. I haven't played a Pro Junior, so I probably shouldn't weigh in there. Let's see. Ooh, this one's cool. Splawn VHT Rivera Other. What does this guy reckon? I think I actually read this thread the other day because I've done some recording with the Splawn Nitro, and it's awesome. There's a demo of it up on my page as well. Let's see. I've been really trying to find something around the 1K range. Few amps have caught my attention. VHT SIG-X, Splawn Nitro, Splawn Quick Rod, Rivera Knucklehead, Archon, Tremorverb, EVH 5153. All right. I've tried everything except the Rivera. Have I tried a Quick Rod? I know the Quick Rod's way more of a plexi thing. The Nitro is a darker recto style thing. So if you're going for that kind of thing, I really like the Nitro boosted as an alternative to a rectifier, but it does have that big low-end kind of boom thing that a plexi style amp like the Quick Rod wouldn't. Mesa, Tremorverb, well, I've got a Rev G rectifier, and that's pretty awesome. But again, it's like, if you think about a tight metal amp, it's kind of the opposite of that unless you boost it. Honestly, out of all of these, I would recommend just trying out, like, you know, if you can find just a 5152 or something, or the modern EVH 5153s are really good. I demoed their lunchbox head, and, you know, not going to break the bank, which is a nice thing there as well. Also, the Jet City amps. I did a video yesterday about my Soldano Hot Rod 50 Plus, and the Jet City JCA 50H almost sounds identical to it for almost no money. So that's a pretty good option there, I would say. What else can we get out of amps and cabs? I'm going to get into the digital and modeling section because I know that's going to be spicy. Let's have a look at some more stuff. I want 5 new amps. Ooh, I want 5 new amps. Let's see. Who doesn't? So I'm after the following: a 5E3, a Skylark, a Mesa Fillmore 25, a Freeman Runt, and a Vox AC15. That's about 10k in amps. Or you could get, if you didn't want to spend that much and get all of those, what could you do? if you wanted some kind of Fendery thing, I reckon the Fillmore, the Skylark, and the 5E3, you could probably cover tones kind of like that. Maybe if you just got the Mesa Fillmore, or maybe if you got, what's the really cool clean Mesa, the Lone Star might do a lot of that. And then obviously the Voxy stuff, that's going to be difficult. Or maybe a Transatlantic. The Transatlantic's really good. And if you don't want a Friedman Runt 20, you get a Marshall DSL 50 or something, or a DSL 20, because they sound, you can get those into the kind of Friedman territory. That wasn't a question he was asking anyway. So let's go to the digital and modeling section, because this is where there's always the most amount of misinformation and it sort of triggered butthurt. So let's see. A Power Cab Plus. I actually still haven't played a Power Cab, but I need to get around to it. The Katana Mark II, they look really cool. I'm looking forward to trying one of those whenever they land in Australia. Does leaving your floor modeler on for hours hurt it? Probably not. You're probably fine. I don't even have to leave that, open that thread up, because I have done sessions here where I've turned my Axe FX on at like 8:30 in the morning and I've turned it off at like 11 at night. And I've done similar things in the studio with my AX8 and it's been fine. So that's probably cool, man, without even having to read that. What else have we got in here? Celestion F12 and a cab or an active PA. I would immediately say that they're going to sound different enough where if you're not experienced with using an active PA with your modeler, it's going to come as a shock, the whole FRFR shock. And the F12 in a cab is going to sound different to putting it in like a, a plastic or some other type of box like a PA. So that's obviously going to have an impact on the tone. Let's see. Would you consider this a major upgrade? Ooh, let's see. A matter of opinion. I'm a hobbyist, so I don't play on stage or in a band. I'm renting the HX Stomp and a Line 6 Power Cab. Would this combo be a significant upgrade to my Mustang 3 and worth the extra cost? I have the budget, but don't want to spend the money just because something is new. In that case, if you've got the Mustang 3 and you've got the HX Stomp and the Power Cab, just try them side by side. And if you like the Line 6 stuff considerably more than the Mustang, then just buy it and be happy. And if it's not doing it for you, then stick with your Mustang. I did a Mindsight gig where the backline, this is actually the thing that kind of inspired me to go down the modeling route. The backline was a Fender Mustang, and it was okay. Got through the gig fine, and it had some cool effects in it, but it got me thinking, it's like, it'd be really awesome if I could just bring my own rig like this, and, I went down the Axe FX route in the end. Let's see. Buy a new computer or a modeling hardware. I will say straight out that sort of no matter how good your interface and your computer and your plugins, although there are some amazing plugins out there on the market at the moment, a dedicated modeler, for me anyway, is just so much more satisfying to play through, just because you've got that dedicated DSP to just do the guitar tones, whereas if you're using your computer, it's running off the computer CPU, and depending on what else you're running on your computer at the same time, you can have issues with latency. You got to be careful with your monitoring. Whereas if you just go and get an Axe FX or a Kemper or a Helix, you're not tied to the computer platform in there. I didn't even read this guy's thread, which I'm just reading the title there, which probably isn't the best thing. All right, what else? Here's an Axe FX question. Great. Let's get on to this one. Pairing an Axe FX 2 or 3 and a Synergy 5050 power amp with a 2x12, what to turn off on the Axe FX? Well, immediately what I would do, if I was only going to use the rig like that, I would disable global cab modeling, and I would probably disable global power amp modeling as well. However, I would test them back and forth, because if you're going for like high gain tones, a lot of the time the tone there is going to be like preamp drive, so it's probably not going to make much of a difference. But if you want to have like a bunch of vintage style amps, like say you wanted the difference between a Plexi and Fender 5E3 or a Vox AC30, a lot of the character of those amps actually comes from the power amp distorting, and you'd probably be very disappointed if you disable the power amp modeling there and you just plug it into a power amp and it kind of sounds weak and tinny. So depends on what you're running. In that case, you know, I'd say the synergies are designed to be relatively clean and not to break up in that case. So you could probably get away leaving power amp modeling on. Again, it just kind of depends on what you're doing. So yeah, we're in this digital and modeling section. Let's look at the effects section, because we've looked at amps and cabs and guitars, and I want to spend a couple of minutes looking at the effects section, because this is actually probably my favorite section of the gear page, because, like I said at the start, often people post stuff about pedals I've never heard of, and then I'll go and read about them, and it just kind of takes off, and it's, you know, you discover some really amazing new stuff. Let's see. Pedals you prefer to have on the floor instead of mounted to your pedal board. What does this guy mean? My pedal board has started to get really packed, and instead of getting a larger board, I found myself taking off a couple of pedals. I see what he means. I used to do this when I ran a pedal board. I always had my wah off the pedal board because I found it just a pain in the backside to actually mount to the board, and I found that it just took up too much space, and it was kind of easier to just, you know, carry the wah around and either have a battery in it or have like a little sort of daisy chain off to the side to power my wah, and then that way I could just sit it there. I could leave the rubber things on it, it would stay really sturdy, and then my board would sit next to it. So that's a wah and an expression pedal. I actually used to leave the volume pedal I had on my board and the wah off the board. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. But there's nothing wrong with that, having a couple of pedals that maybe, you know, I always think when you're doing a gig and you've got a mic stand in front of you from when you're talking, when you're singing, sometimes it's nice to have the wah off to one side or some pedals off to the other side and other pedals to the other side, depending on how you work, and then you got the mic in the middle. Let's see, what else have we got in here? I want some questions and some opinions. Like, what's your favorite overdrive pedal? That's always a spicy one over here. The most overrated and underrated dirt pedals. Okay. I think the Morley Distortion Boost should get more glory. I was disappointed by the Wampa Pinnacle and the Maxon OD9. What pedals are your big love at second sight? This is a good one, because I still think the Boss Super Overdrive super underrated. You know, the Tube Screamer is like the default overdrive everyone thinks about, but I love the Boss SD1, both as just like a boost into a dirty amp and as an overdrive into a clean amp. In terms of overrated, I'm going to cop a lot of heat here if I say like a Bluesbreaker style drive. I don't mind the King of Tone thing, but it's just, you know, it's not really my wheelhouse. So I get it. I get it. Like when you play in a Strat into like a deluxe reverb or something, and that's kind of the drive that you want. But personally, for what I like to use overdrive pedals for, it's kind of neither here nor there. I think there's a lot of fuzz pedals out there that are probably a bit overrated, but that's because fuzz is such a personal thing. But yeah, the old Boss SD1 definitely. Can I think of something more esoteric in there as well? I'm obviously a big fan of the Anarchy audio Stompboxes as well, so I think they deserve to get a lot more love out there, and I love their Rainmaker distortion. That one is really, really unique. I think it's got a Baxandall 3-band EQ in it, which is kind of cool, and I love their Workhorse pedal. That's like probably my favorite boost into a dirty amp ever. All right, let's get another pedal question in here. If you guys have watched this far as well, I don't know how you've put up with this much of me rambling, but nevertheless, let's see. All right, fuzz within an effects loop. That's interesting. I think the amp tweaker stuff, off the top of my head, often has like a loop in the distortion pedal, which is kind of cool. All right, here's a question I feel qualified to talk about: the Eventide Rose versus the Boss DD200. I want to delay with presets for my board. I've got an H9, a Walrus ARP 87, and an X5 Mad. I hardly use the H9 for delay, but use the other two a lot. Lately, I've been thinking about swapping the Mad for a similar size delay that has a few presets. Let's see, the DD200, and then I stumbled upon the Rose, and I'm kind of torn. All right, if you saw my demo this week for the DD200, there's a few things that I didn't realize that it can do, like 1/8 and 1/4 and 1/2 speed delays, and then you can assign the warp or the twist function on there. I think the nice thing about the DD200 for me is it's like all the stuff that you'd want in a delay instant access to. And then there's a bit of deep dive stuff, whereas the Rose is really, that's a delay. Obviously, it's really easy to just get a really sweet sounding delay out of it. But the reason I like that pedal is you can do wacky stuff with it. Like you can reverse and slow down stuff. And I really need to do a video with that and an external MIDI controller. Just to access some of those functions hands-free, but I love it with synths and I love it with like ambient guitar stuff or running it before a looper or after a looper so that you can like manipulate the delay times. It's actually amazing with an expression pedal just to get some really crazy stuff. I don't see myself using more of the gimmicky features of the pedals. I'm just looking for classic delay sounds, whether it's a wall-modulated DMM style delay. Right. Well, in that case, I think you'll probably be happy with either of them, like as, you know, non-committal as that is. I think the tape mode and the bin drum echo mode in the DD200 are worth the price of entry alone. But then I like with the Rose, you've got control over the modulation depth and speed and the ability to have different types of waveforms for the modulation. So I would say if you're slightly more towards the type of person who really enjoys modulated delay sounds, go with the Rose. If you're someone who wants like cool old school tape and bin drum sort of sounds, then probably the DD200, but honestly it's pretty hard to go wrong with either of them. The Rose, you need the little deep tweaking thing with it if you want to like access a bunch of the features, whereas the DD200, yeah, it's got some deep tweaking as well, but most of the stuff you want's on the front of the pedal. So they're both really, really inspiring delays. All right, we're getting near the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for putting up. I'm going to go to the rack space. And this is totally a place where I often just go to learn things because all the people who post in the rack space are old HRI, Huge Racks Inc. people. And yeah, I just kind of know nothing compared to these people. But anyway, I'm going to go in and answer some questions. The Matrix GT1000 versus a Rocktron mainline. I love the Matrix stuff, so I'm just going to go straight out and say the GT1000. I've got a GT800, and I love that thing. We've used it live a lot, running guitar and bass in like parallel mode, which is pretty awesome. Let's see. There was a good thread. I often just go through and get weird gas for pieces of gear over here, like the lexicon stuff that these guys are always talking about. Looking for an IR cab loading line level box. All right, I would say that probably 2 notes is going to be the way to go, like the Torpedo Studio or Live or whatever that is, because it's a load box and you can load up IRs and it's got a line out. I know there's like the Rivera. Ah, here you go. The Torpedo Live. Yep. Torpedo Live, just do that. I think that's pretty much the only unit I can think of off the top of my head that does all of those kind of things. What else can we do in here? The rack effects. Delicious, delicious rack effects. There's a whole thread on the Eventide H9000. H9000. Which is very, very gas-inducing. Anybody here own a Digitech MEQ rack EQ? Ooh, a VHT 2502 versus a Marshall 2020 with a Soldano X88R, what to buy? I always like headroom in those kind of power amps, so I would go for whatever is the most powerful. I've not really been a big fan of the EL84 tube power amps that I've tried in the past. Help getting this tone, the Dean DeLeo Rocktron IntelliVerb tone. I bet you he's going to post a clip to, is it Plush? No. There's a great video that Michael Nielsen, Big Hairy Guitars, did with the Stone Temple Pilot sound with the IntelliVerb, and that's what made me want to get my Intel effects out and try the 8-voice chorus. I've got a couple of 8-voice chorus videos that you can watch up there as well. So, this has been I haven't really found anything too ridiculous in here. I've just been answering random questions. I want to find something really just, you know, facepalm on here. So where could we go to find that? Yes. I feel like amps and cabs or effects and pedals probably should have been the place to go. Maybe we can go back to the digital forum and find something. Explain the amp in the room thing to me. Oh, that has 33 pages. I'm going to avoid that like a like a bad rash. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's that whole John Mayer Axe Effects thing where he complains about some stuff and people are taking it as gospel. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, does it matter what anybody else thinks about your gear as long as you enjoy it? I'm sure there were people who laughed at Eddie Van Halen when he rocked up with his crummy little pedal board and his old Marshall and his guitar that he built himself. It's like, oh no, you should be using XYZ Spec A, whatever. And, you know, when that guy played, it sounded incredible. So I'm sure that for whatever John does, you know, he's got a particular response that he's used to. So he can just go and plug into his gear that he already has. Why would he want to change that? Whereas anybody else, you know, I'm really happy with the response on my Axe effects. And I mean, I'm not John Mayer, so why would it have any impact on what I like to do in my wheelhouse? So kind of like this video, like, you know, listening to my opinion on stuff. Why would you take my opinion for it? I'm just a guy with a camera on the internet answering random questions on the gear page. So yeah, that's a really silly, lighthearted little Q&A video for this week. Let me know what you guys thought about it in the video descriptions. And if you want to see more content like this, please don't say you want to see more content like this, because I'm sure this will just be a one-off, and we'll resume our regular Q&A stuff next week. You guys have been awesome. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you. When will I see you? I'll see you next time. Cheers.